Welcome, parents. Today we're going to talk about how we, as parents, talk about money really affects our children and some of the things that maybe we should be doing right now regarding money to really prepare for the future. So, today I have special guest on Misty Lynch, and she is a financial advisor. She also hosts a weekly podcast called Modern Money. And I'm very happy to have her on today to talk to us and give us some money saving tips. Thank you for being here, Misty.
Thank you so much for having me, Christina.
Well, I'd like to know, why is it that how we talk about money as parents in front of our children really matters?
So I think, a lot of people can remember the way their parents felt about money. I'm sure if you thought about it, all of my clients, sometimes it's a question I ask them, and they usually can tell me. Now, even if their parents never talked about money with them or thought that they were being private about it, there's a lot of things that kids start to just listen to and hear, even at a really young age, that really impacts the way they look at money throughout their whole lifetime. So if they're always hearing things like, we can't afford that, or must be nice, or if they're just hearing these things, they might start to have what we call a scarcity mindset when it comes to money, like there's never going to be enough, and maybe start to feel maybe afraid of it, don't want to talk about it, ashamed of it, and maybe they start to make bring that into their future life as they grow up, and some of those thoughts might not really serve them. And so I think it's really important, and this maybe, our generation is going to be very different too. The kids that we're raising, my kids, they're not used to even seeing cash. It's swiping a card or touching a button. And so it's hard to understand that concept of spending and just be like, well, just click and we'll get it, or swipe it. So I think it's really up to parents to really start to maybe have some conversations with their kids when they want something, and think, how can I talk to them about money so they know that we're actually exchanging, something of value, something that is tangible every time we, go to the store or do something. And I think kids really do understand quite a bit. And so I think we can have some better conversations at a young age to really kind of build a healthy relationship with money, because it's always going to be a part of their life.
And I think that money is one of those parenting things that sometimes we don't even do it. It's like I see a lot of parents who just assume that the school handles that.
Mhm.
The school is going to teach them about money. And in reality, it really starts in the home on how kids view money, and really should be reinforced at home, how to save, how to spend, the importance of all those things, investments and things like that. It's not really taught in the school all that much, other than the good old, how much is a dollar worth versus a nickel and a quarter. And like you said, our kids are actually having more and more difficulty understanding, or I should say comprehending, money, because they don't physically use it the way we did when we grew up.
Mhm.
It's all virtual.
Yeah.
So I think that this abstract money issue that's happening in our world today is much harder of a concept for our younger kids to grasp. And if they can't start grasping it young, then they have less time as teenagers to really learn how to deal with it, and learn how to save, and learn the importance, and learn how far the dollar really stretches, and all those little things like that. So happy to have you on today and start talking about this, because it's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed in the home. And we got to start doing that like right now. And I
Yeah.
know one of the things that a lot of parents struggle with is giving their kids too much. We, as parents, and I'm guilty of this too, I think we all are from time to time, we want to give our children whatever it is that they need so that they feel fulfilled. We want to give them things that we didn't have, because
Yeah.
we want them to have it. It's coming from a place of love.
Mhm.
Oftentimes that ends up being a disservice. But what are ways that parents can balance that? Oh, I want to give my child stuff, but I also need them to learn that value of a dollar.
Yeah. And this is something that even I struggle with as a financial planner. I still will see my child upset or in pain or something. and want to swoop in and be like, okay, sweetie, like we could buy this toy. That'll make you feel better. Which now that I've been doing, so much work in this, I realized that like just letting her feel her feelings and understand that it's okay to feel upset or frustrated, and to just let that exist without constantly trying to either, even if it's buying an ice cream or buying something to make that, situation go away, is going to serve her much better. And when they want to buy things, what I like to do, even though we can get things delivered next day, or we can just go get them now that the world is reopened, sometimes we'll just be more patient and we'll think like, okay, well, how much, because my son just had his first communion and he got money. And so sometimes he'll take his own money and go to the bookstore and he'll pick out a book. And I've started to have him start to look at his own money and actually use it, even as an 8-year-old child. So he understands, because if you start with cash, like physically handing over cash to pay for something feels much more painful than swiping a card or clicking a button, but they still accept it. So I think for him, what I've done is, and sometimes he'll make decisions if he wants to wait. And my daughter likes to save her money. She's 7. She, my son will go to the store and spend it. And so I think it's okay. And they also really like, they've started donating to I think it's the World Wildlife Federation, because my son loves elephants. And so even showing what being generous and charity and how you can maybe, sometimes they make money for like Christmas or holidays or helping with some chores, how they can use that in different ways, and how some of those ways can feel really good. And some of them might be like, well, I don't really like this toy anymore. Maybe I'll wait, or maybe I'll get the book from the library because I read fast. And once I finish it, it's over. So I think there's ways we could kind of bring that in. And if it means we have to say, okay, well, we want this, Chris, like maybe we can wait and get this, or put this on our list for, for what we want to ask for our birthday and things like that. And kids understand it. I think they might get frustrated and mad, because we all do when we can't get exactly what we want all the time. But if it really helps us financially to do that in a way where we're spending a little bit more mindfully, I think our kids will understand it.
I'm a big advocate for letting kids save and wait for the things that they need. And it is very hard to watch
Yes,
them be frustrated, but it's
it
all a
is.
part of the process and part of that growth. And as a parent, I kind of got to bite my tongue sometimes, and not help them, right? Or not do things for them,
Yeah.
because it is, you're trying to create that skill. You're trying to let them be frustrated so they know what that feels like, and feel that frustration in a space that's safe, and
Yes.
not when they're already older and off to college or wherever they might be, and feeling it alone on
Yeah.
top of it all.
Or
I'm
yeah, or
also
they get their first credit card and then they say, "Oh, I'm just going to get what I want because I deserve it," and not really understand that those bills are due, you have to pay it off, and sometimes you do have to be patient, or you do have to think of other ways that you can maybe get some of the things you want, if it means, borrowing them, or, going to the library, or getting something, from a used source, things like that people can think about if they're forced to get creative, which only happens when you have to use, that planning, that very human like front part of your brain that doesn't get what it wants all the time right away.
I'm also an advocate for children having some sort of allowance, or um, maybe get paid for extra chores around the house that are not part of their normal household duties. Um, I do feel like there's duties around the house that everybody has to do as part of their keep, but over and beyond that, you can get paid for that. And then letting the child buy those stupid, frivolous things that you know are going to break, but
Yes.
allowing them to do it, and let them find out for themselves that that is not a good purchase. And although I'll warn my child, I'll still let them buy, because otherwise, some kids, they don't. Most children need to learn by doing and not by listening to your advice. So
Yeah.
you warn them, and then you let them fail, and then you're there for them when
Yeah.
when things get rough and their toy breaks, and you give them a hug and you say, well, next time let's make a better choice, and that's okay. But we learned from this and we're moving forward, and let's do some more chores tomorrow to earn something more. So, but I do want to ask you, at what age would you recommend for parents to start opening up a bank account for children?
Yeah, so depending on what the reasoning for the account is. Like if it's to save for college in like a 529 plan or something like that, I would say the sooner the better, because that would just give you more time to put in smaller amounts, or maybe just have a long time for that money to grow. For my kids, we did open bank accounts for them recently that are attached to a kid debit card. I want them to be understand that this is linked to actually the money that they have saved, because I realize that this is going to be their future. There's going to be, plastic tap, and go. So I saw, an account online that had that availability. And like you said, I don't just get, we don't just give an allowance. Kids are naturally generous and helpful. So I don't want them to always think that every time they're helpful that they're going to make money. But I do think it's good to say, hey, if they did something extra, or, volunteered to help with something, or if they did something fantastic at school and got recognized, that we can just, we can add to that account when we choose to. And that, maybe we could say, okay, well, if we do a couple extra things, or you help me with this big task, then we'll have enough money to get, like you said, the $5 bin toy at Target that maybe isn't really that worth it, but they're using their own money then to get it. So I think around, depending on your child, I think my 6-year-old really understood it, and my 8-year-old, we did it kind of at the same time. And so actually at a pretty young age, kids can get the concept of, you can't just go into a store and walk out with something. And, I think it can be really helpful in teaching them how to, not just trade their time or their effort for money, but create value, maybe do certain things that, and that they can get creative and, and then start to use their own money to do different things with it. And I do think introducing, charity at a young age is pretty great too, because maybe that will feel good, that they can know that they can use their money to support other causes, things that they think are important, and feel kind of empowered in that way too. So it's not just, spending for things that they want, or saving just to be able to do, all of those things that we can do with our money.
Now, another worry that I know many parents have is being a financial burden on their children when, things might happen, and something might happen to us as parents, or even in our older age, or whatever that might look like. We don't want to be a financial burden on our kids. So what kind of advice do you have for parents that have that concern?
Yeah. And I think I hear that almost all the time with, with my clients, who, especially if they're, they're still working, they're saving, but they still feel like, most people have seen medical debt or something happen to families where they're like, oh my gosh, what if this happened with this, if I couldn't work or lost my job, or in retirement, if I didn't save enough, like, are my kids who's going to take care of me? Because you can't borrow for retirement. And unfortunately, most people don't leave the workforce like the day they choose. Usually, something, it's either, health reasons, job elimination, stuff like that. So saving, for the future is very important. It's very hard to do when you're thinking about what's going on right now, like your kid wants dance lessons or this, and it feels like that is the most important thing right now. But it's really just the thing that's right in front of your face. That's just happening today. But I think trying to always balance out that long term with the short term right now. And so I think it's really important for parents, if you're working for an employer that has workplace benefits like life insurance, 401k or matching programs, or if you're self-employed and you can start some things that maybe help you on the tax side, but also help you put money away for future you, then you're going to ultimately be helping your family so much.
What would be the first steps for a parent who's like, okay, I know I need to start saving right now? Where do they go? Do they go to the bank, the financial advisor? Where's step one?
I think most people, the first step could be to go to their employer if they're working. Sometimes they're, and this is different for self-employed people, and that's why I work with a lot of them personally. But if you are working for an employer, you can see if they have anything available. Some companies get a tax break for helping their employees save, or they want to be a more attractive employer, so they offer some benefits that are maybe elective, or things that you can opt into. So it might be smart to see what you have access to that would come out of your paycheck before you even get a chance to spend it. If you're self-employed, or you're doing maybe contract work, what you can do is, you could think about, there's a few options: talking to an IRA or talking to an advisor about an IRA. You can open these things on your own. And there's never been more access to financial advice and information than there is now. Used to be, you have a lot of money, you get an advisor. Now you don't need to have a lot of money to work with an advisor. You don't need to have a lot of money to get a financial plan done. You just really need to, to look around and maybe find somebody that can want to work with, and you might be able to find someone who can help you. And then they might just be able to do a one-time plan for you to help you get started, set up the accounts, put that on autopilot, and then you just keep working and living your life. Meanwhile, you know that you've kind of done the major things that you need to do. So that can be really helpful. Sometimes it's not going to be your family member that has money who's the best person to give you advice for your situation, because maybe they never had to take on student loan debt. Maybe they were able to have a summer job to pay for college. Maybe they think debt is bad because they bought their house for $80,000, 30 years ago. So I think it's really important to find somebody who understands you and your situation, that you can kind of lay out all of the things that you want to do without feeling any shame or guilt, or, get advice that's really tailored to you.
What are some of the major money mistakes that you see that parents do so that we can avoid those?
And also, I think that there's some massive mistakes that I've seen, unfortunately, where people feel like planning, like doing any sort of estate planning or getting life insurance, they'll say that their kids are the most important thing in the world, but then they have no guardianship set up for them, or something happens to them unexpectedly and there's no custody arrangement. So your children, whoever, the state would decide, who's taking care of your kids. It might not be the wealthiest relative. That might not be the person you want. It might be somebody else, but the courts are going to just weigh the information that they have. And so when I talk to parents who say they have young children, making sure that they have, basically, that's like putting the life jacket, the face mask on, and making sure that things are, in a worst case scenario, taken care of. It might seem like it's too much money or not worth it, but the same time, you will spend that much money on travel sports and think that it's something you have to do and it makes sense. So I think those are some of the mistakes that are just tragic and sad and you don't want to see happen. But I think making sure that, yeah, if something was to happen to you, your family would know what to do. And, there would be money there if you need insurance, or there would be a plan there if, say, you have money. It would be not something that's just contested in the courts and fought over, because it can cause a lot of stress. I'd like to be the person that makes that decision while I'm still healthy and happy and on a normal day, not when, somebody's stressed out or anything like that. So those are some of the big things that I see parents, really not value, because it's kind of scary to think about it. But I think it's one of those things, you just think about it once, get everything done. And sometimes your employer can help with that, but it's also, there's a lot of people that offer some great packages for parents to really just kind of get those things in order so they can, continue on with their life.
It is definitely one of those topics that parents avoid, don't want to think about, that fact that maybe something could happen and they wouldn't be here. Like, you don't want to think about that. I think that's why so many people divert from it.
Yeah.
That, and also the expense of hiring that person to come in and help you set that up. It's just another thing on top of all the other stuff that parents deal with on a daily basis. But it is important, and it is something that we should be making more a priority for sure.
Yeah. And I think also sometimes people overestimate what they think it would cost, where I know some people, if they were healthy and they got like a term life insurance policy right now, just using the money that they got from the child tax credit that's just dropped in their bank accounts, that could cover like a year or more of coverage, just, with that 1 month. So I think that it's at least good to be curious and to ask yourself questions about, like, okay, what would I wish that I could do, and then maybe just, it's usually pretty easy to ask. And some employers do offer these types of benefits, like legal planning and stuff like that, where it might seem like something you don't need, but it could be a really good idea just to, find somebody, at least get you started. And then if you make more money in the future, or have a bigger estate, or inherit something, then you can go to a different, you can get a trust done. But the basic things, you might be able to do that just for, a couple $100s.
Oh, that's good to know. And if people want to reach out to you because they need help, they want to start getting things into order, how would they do that?
Sure. So if you head over to mistylynch.com, my website has information about investment management, financial planning, and the group coaching program that I offer for people that really do want to do that work on their own money mindset, and hopefully, pass that along to their children. Because I think we all might have some memories and some thoughts and feelings about money that, we have never really examined or worked through. So I think you can definitely be the person who makes those changes for your family in the future. If you actually do spend some time thinking about, why those thoughts might be in your head, and how you can live a more abundant life in the future.
Well, thank you for being on today, Misty. You got this, parents. But until next time, we're just here to help.